Alright, hello people from the internet, hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Nice Settler here with another spell school overview. This time we are doing translocations. And as you can see, translocations focus on the spatial movement of beings or objects, including useful spells to translocate yourself over short distances quickly or to transport your enemies away from you. And you know, the second paragraph is what every school says, so there's no point in repeating it. You read it once, you read it, you read them all. All right. So before properly starting to talk about the spells in translocations, I would like to remind you that it might be a good idea for you to speed up the video a bit. I feel like 1.5 is the correct spot. But with that being said, let's continue. All right. Um, Translocations is it's weird. It's mostly utility. It does have some direct damage spells that kinda require you to jump through a bit too many hoops for me to like. Apart from Manifold Assault, I like Manifold Assault, but I'll talk about that spell when the time comes. When it comes to translocations, it's not really like a hard carry skill. It's more like something that you get to um, aid yourself at doing the thing that you're already doing when it comes to, you know, surviving or killing things. It's like a support skill. We can call it a support skill. Pretty good, but definitely not a hard carry skill. It's not like you cannot train translocations as if you were training Earth Magic or Conjurations or something along those lines. Like those skills literally win you the game. They become like your main tool that you use to kill things. Translocations will almost never become that. It's like really, really difficult for translocations to become that. With that out of the way, let's begin talking about the spells. The first spell that we have here is Apport. Apport pulls the top item or group of similar items from a distant pile to the floor near the caster. With lower power, items might not be moved all the way to the caster's position. Extremely powerful magical items, such as the Orb of Sot, may actively resist the pull of this spell. Funny thing that it says that, because I think the Orb of Sot is literally the only thing in the game that does that can be failed to Apport. You can do it 100% against runes. I've never had it fail against a rune. And I use it a lot when I go to extended to pull runes. This spell was more powerful before the Abyss got changed in 0.28 because you could just wander around in the Abyss, and instead of walking over to that Scroll of Blinking or Scroll of Acquirement, Potion of Heal Wounds, that kind of thing, you just used Apport and pulled it towards you, and then you kept going on your way. So it is like it is a very convenient spell. You obviously cannot do that anymore because the Abyss doesn't drop items. Not anymore. You can still do it in Pandemonium because Pandemonium does drop items. Pandemonium is another place where this spell is really good. This spell is it is okay for 3-rune games. It's not that useful in 3-rune games, but it is okay. But it is definitely at its best when you're going for a 15-rune game. On a 15-rune game, this spell is priceless. It is actually fantastic for a 15-rune game. And it's not like it's a necessity for going into 15 runes, but you will notice when you don't have it because it enables you to do a lot of things. It's funny that it's a level 1 spell and it is this powerful and this good. But yeah, I guess it compensates for its power by being extremely niche. So it's understandable that it is this powerful in these very specific situations. Apport can be used for pulling runes after you shatter and break the bolt in Hell or Pandemonium in case you don't want to fight the Hell Lord or the Panlord. It's pretty good at that. You just read a teleport, and then Apport, and then pick it up, and then just teleport pretty much instantly. Or well, you can play around with the order of those actions, because sometimes you can teleport before you actually manage to pick it up, unless you if you Apport, teleport, pick it up, then that's like almost guaranteed to, well, it's guaranteed to let you pick up the rune before you teleport. If you do teleport, then Apport, then pick up, it may teleport you very fast. So there's like that slight risk with teleport and Apport. But yeah, really, really good spell for extended. Not so fantastic for 3 runes. Next on our list we have Blink. So many variants of Blink, most of which are not available to players. Blink randomly translocates the caster a short distance. Translocating in this way destabilizes the caster temporarily, preventing consecutive blinks for a short period of time depending on spell power. This spell is very strong, very very useful. It's not a spell that kills anything, but you can combine this spell with something as simple as a Fustivalus or a Hunting Sling that you found on D2 on the floor, and then just blink and shoot at things, and then blink again when they're close. It does have a cooldown now that, the higher spell power you have, the lower cooldown it has, until the point where it doesn't have any cooldown at all at 100% spell power. But it should be fine for using it like that. It is a very strong synergy. It takes monsters that are melee range away from you and the beginning of the game, and even not so beginning of the game. You can use it against, for example, a Naga warrior that just happened to grab you in Snake. You can use Blink to get away from the constriction. It is a bit more reliable than just trying to walk away from the constriction. So yeah, Blink is really, really good at all stages of the game. It's just a very powerful tool that is very versatile, and because of that, it's been made rarer and it's been made more. It's been nerfed a bit with a cooldown. The cooldown is the main nerf that Blink has received, apart from its accessibility. Not a lot of books have it nowadays. But yeah, it's a really, really, really strong spell. Whenever you get it, you should memorize it. Like on any character that is kinda reasonably casting level 2 spells, you should get Blink because it's that good. Most of my winning characters, in fact, I would go as far as to say that every winning character that I've had that happens to find Blink just wins the game with it. If I find it, if I don't find it, obviously I won't have it. But yeah, it is that good, that cheap, and that powerful. So yeah, not much else to say. It's just good. Get it. Next on our list we have Gell's Gravitas. You may not even know about this spell. It briefly redirects gravity around the target point, causing down to be towards that point. All nearby creatures save the caster fall helplessly towards that point, typically colliding with each other or with a victim standing there. This spell deals damage. It moves monsters and it deals damage. There is the synergy between Gell's Gravitas and Inner Flame. If you Inner Flame a monster and then you Gell Gravitas that monster will take a lot of damage because it's being hit by a bunch of dudes and therefore explode and therefore hurt the other dudes that hit the dude and caused the explosion in the first place. That's a nice little combo that you can do with Gell's Gravitas. This is not really my favorite spell. I feel like it is kind of a noob trap, in my opinion, that gives you the illusion that you can actually, use translocations to deal damage, when in reality the spell school is very much not like that. Not to mention the spell doesn't do anything against a single target. If you use it against a single target, it's just straight up worthless. It is a waste of mana and a waste of a turn, so don't use it against a single target. This spell is at its best when you're using it against bands. If you're using it against Orc bands, Ogre bands, later in the game, Naga bands, Deep Troll bands, Human bands in the bolts, Deep Elf bands. It is okay at dealing with them. It's not my first option by any means, but in conjunction with Inner Flame, it can certainly be kind of okay at dealing with them. However, I would very much try to build my character in such a way that it never has to do such a thing. But it is a thing that can be done if you literally don't have anything else. Something that you may want to consider if you really try your best to win every character that you start. So yeah, that's Gell Gravitas. It's not a spell that I've used a lot because I feel like it requires you to jump through too many hoops to actually have it deal good damage. And even then, eventually, you're gonna be left with like one or two monsters, and at that point, Gell's Gravitas is not gonna deal enough damage to them. So it's not gonna be that good. Next on our list, we have Portal Projectile. Projectile allows a caster to teleport fired or thrown missiles directly to their targets for a short duration, spending an additional small amount of magic for each missile. Teleported projectiles have their accuracy greatly increased. So this, makes it so that you can actually hit some ridiculous things that otherwise you wouldn't be able to hit with a launcher, such as monsters with repel missiles, or Deep Elf Blade Masters, or Spriggans in general. That kind of, monster. So this spell is okay. It also makes your projectiles be smite targeted, so you can snipe things in the back row with this spell. This spell is made to do that. That's like the main purpose of the spell, the sniping of back row monsters. And it does pretty good at that, I have to say. It's not a spell that I use a lot, but I also don't really play much with launchers, especially since the changes in Tloc, 0.29 Tloc. Those changes are going to go live in a couple of months. So the stable version of Crawl that we'll release in like August will have the reworked launchers. Now they don't have ammunition, so you can use them immediately as you get them. But the trade-off for that is that they are massively nerfed. So they're stronger in the early game because you can actually use them in the early game. But the more the game progresses, the weaker they are until the point where they feel pretty bad to use. I have a couple of runs with the new launchers in my channel. I think I have at least one, but I may have to, not sure. And yeah, I didn't really like it. I feel like they are most definitely a shadow of their former selves, but it's completely understandable because their former selves were kind of overpowered towards the end of the game. The launchers were flipped around. They used to be really strong later on and really weak earlier on, and now they're really strong earlier on and really weak later on. So yeah, that's just how it is. And that's all I have to say about Portal Projectile. I had to say more about launchers than about Portal Projectile because at the end of the day, Portal Projectile is a spell that is completely worthless if you don't have a launcher or a throwables. But you're not going to use Portal Projectile with boomerangs, or especially not with javelins. You're going to use it with large rocks, if any. With large rocks, it's pretty good. Yeah. In fact, I think that the only character where I would like actively try to get Portal Projectile would be a character that is throwing large rocks, usually a Nugger, because trolls are pretty bad at casting spells. Even if it's a level 3 dual school spell, it might still be difficult for a troll to cast that spell in any kind of heavy armor, whereas a Nugger, you can probably do that a bit better. Next on our list, we have Lesser Beckoning. Lesser Beckoning beckons the target forward, attempting to place them adjacent to the caster. Lesser Beckoning's range increases with spell power. The more spell power, the more range. It is really, really good. On certain characters, it is most definitely not something that you want to grab with your Deep Elf with 50 HP at experience level 10. This spell will enable you as a strong melee character to not need to get like other ranged options until much later in the game, because you can just pull that nasty spellcaster immediately next to you and then like silence it with a scroll of silence or with the spell, or do something along those lines, or and just like take care of it. Um, so yeah, Lesser Beckoning is really good. Lesser Beckoning is also a spell that I would greatly favor on things that cannot walk as fast as you usually can, like um, like Baraki, like Naga, and like any Chebriados worshipper. In fact, the only times that I would ever consider going Chebriados is when I have these. If I don't have these, I wouldn't consider going Chebriados. Um, this spell is really good for Chebriados worshippers, precisely because of that. Not being able to move means that if you see a centaur at the edge of the screen, it might be really, really rough, but this makes it much easier to deal with. It makes it so that you are going to take much less damage fighting that hypothetical centaur. Mm, so yeah, Lesser Beckoning is really good. It is something that I would recommend for melee characters, yes, I mentioned. I don't think I have much else to say about Lesser Reckoning other than it generally has my seal of approval, though it not with every character. Let's go to the next spell, which is going to be Teleport Other. Randomly translocates a targeted creature. As simple as that. It's just a spell that applies a teleport status effect on something else. This spell is not something that I've ever used because it checks willpower and it doesn't kill the thing. For practical purposes, it kinda does because it removes it from its band, so it makes it significantly easier to kill. But you have to wait a couple of turns and it checks willpower. It's not a spell that I've ever been interested in. I guess that's all I have to say about Teleport Other. It is theoretically good, but then again, my playstyle tries to avoid things that check willpower as much as possible. Um, Unless they do so in a non-intrusive way. For example, demonic magic from the demon spawn mutation is, in my opinion, really good because it does check willpower, but it does so in a non-intrusive way. It's like a bonus to something that you're already doing that doesn't check willpower. So either it does succeed at the willpower check and you just kill the monster that was affected by demonic magic, or it doesn't and nothing happens because you were not committing and relying to that. And with things that check willpower normally, like hexes and this teleport to other spell, it is very much that you are committing to winning the or to beating the willpower of the monster that you're targeting. So yeah, that's why I've never used it, and I don't really feel too compelled to use it. Next on our list we have Passage of Golubria opens two gateways, one always near the caster, which allow instantaneous transportation to random other open gateways to any creature entering them. There is no limit to the number of gateways that can be opened at one time, but a gateway will close when entered or after a moderate amount of time. This spell cannot be used in the Realm of Sot, because this spell was incredibly strong in the Realm of Sot. What people used to do, well, this is a very old iteration of Passage of Golubria, but people used to learn Passage of Golubria specifically for Sot 5, cast it near the entrance, go pick up the orb, well, cast it near the orb, then go pick up the orb, then go in and then just skip Sot 5 altogether. That is not a thing that you can do anymore, but it is a thing that was doable in older versions. So if you ever play an older version, keep that in mind. Passage of Golubria is pretty okay now. It is also another spell that I will almost never use, but I do think that it is reasonably strong. You can cast it and like step on it, and then it will place you somewhere, and then you can cast it again, and then just go into the portal that you're standing on, because you land in an open portal, so you can just keep going in and going in and going in. And this will be very costly mana-wise, because it's a level 4 spell at the end of the day. So you might have to cast it 3 or 4 times to make a getaway, but you will almost be guaranteed to be able to make a getaway with Passage of Golubria, as long as you start casting it at a high enough amount of HP. The reason why I don't get this is because if I want to get away, if I want to make a getaway, is more often than not going to be because I'm at low HP or low mana, and yeah, with a bit of planning ahead, this spell is really, really powerful. But I don't usually have a lot of planning ahead when I'm playing, at least not tactics-wise, not like combat-wise. I have planning ahead when it comes to my build and stuff, not when it comes to any one combat. Next on our list we have Manifold Assault. Manifold Assault warps a space into paradoxical configurations in order to strike many visible targets with one melee attack. The effect is too imprecise to allow stabbing unsuspecting foes. At higher power, it can be used to strike more enemies at once. I think it starts at 2 minimum, and then it can be 4 maximum. This spell is incredibly powerful, but it needs to be coupled with something else. You need Dragon Form, you need Storm Form. You can do it with Statue Form or with a really good melee weapon, but I wouldn't bother if I didn't have a Dragon Form or Storm Form for this. However, if you do have those, this spell becomes a win condition. Like Manifold Assault, Dragon Form, with a reasonable amount of unarmed combat, just kills things so fast with so much safety for the caster. Sure, Dragon Form completely nukes your defenses and resistances, melding all your gear. But it gives you 50% more HP, and it also gives you obscene damage output. So it is very easy to take advantage of that when you don't have to go into melee range to fight monsters. I would recommend Manifold Assault on any character that has gotten Dragon Form early enough in the game. Like if you get Dragon Form, that's already good enough to win the game. But if you get Dragon Form and then you get Manifold, you should very much consider going into it if you don't have any other thing going already. It is definitely not worth it to go into Dragonform Manifold when you already have something like Firestorm or Refrigeration or Shatter, Polar Vortex, that kind of thing, you know? But if you don't have anything, this spell combination will literally win you the game, as long as you don't make any terrible mistakes or too many terrible mistakes in a row. This gives you the damage and the power output and the versatility to win the game, because it hits the entirety of the screen. You can cast it on monsters that are on the opposite side of the screen, and you will hit them with Manifold Assault. Once again, let me remind you, only with Dragon Form or with Storm Form. If you don't have those, I wouldn't really bother with Manifold. Yeah. I guess you could get it if you don't have those, but it's not gonna be nearly as good. And it's also not gonna be worth 5 mana, in my opinion. But if you are not using your mana for anything else, maybe it's a good thing to think about. But whatever. I think I already said too much about Manifold Assault. Next on our list we have Dispersal. A spell that I've never used, I think. Dispersal teleports away any creatures within a short distance of the caster. Any creature that resists the effect will still be irresistibly blinked a shorter distance. And any monster it affects at all has a chance of being confused by the warping of space. As you can see, it has a range that scales with spell power. It is kind of a translocation strength to scale heavily with spell power, which is something that I find interesting because the spells themselves seldom deal any damage. It's complicated. I also never really train a lot of translocations. Even when I'm using Manifold Assault, I train like 12 or 13 at most, usually somewhere around 10, 11. by extension, I almost never get this spell, even if I do have Manifold Assault. Maybe next time I have Manifold Assault, I should try adding this spell to the mix to just like give it a try as a utility option, since it theoretically can be pretty good. It can just hard counter convoking. Like you get mobbed by 17 dudes at the same time, and then you just cast Dispersal, and all those 17 dudes go away to different rooms in the level or get blinked and confused. Um, that sounds really good. But I wouldn't go out of my way to get this one. I would use it if I just like had access to it with like Manifold Assault. But on the other hand, Manifold Assault also makes it kind of unlikely that you will have to use this because Manifold Assault is just very good at killing things before they reach you, and this only affects things that reach you. So yeah, I don't know. If you have any characters where you've used Dispersal before, do tell me about that in the comments because I'm always interested in expanding my thoughts about how I can use certain spells. While I am making the tutorial series, I'm like pretty much doing that. I'm telling you how I use many of these spells, but there's some spells that I do not use because I pretty much intentionally go out of my way to not have to use them. And I would say that this is kind of one of those spells. I just see level 6 and doesn't kill anything, and I'm not really that interested. But it might be okay. I should give it a try for sure. Next on our list we have Malign Gateway. Ooh, that one I like. Malign Gateway tears a gash in reality, creating a self-sustained but temporary portal to an unknown tainted otherworld. Requires open space to succeed. After a short time, a powerful cloth tentacle will reach through the portal, remaining bound to the caster's will for a duration depending on power. With the portal's expiry, the tentacle will be severed and turned on the caster. The duration of the portal increases with spell power. This spell is incredible. This spell is also a win condition. I always talk about how I don't like summons, but I think I've mentioned it a couple of times. But what I really mean when I say that is that I don't like the early game summons. Those ones are pretty whack. This, however, is no early game summon. This is ridiculously strong. The tentacle that is summoned is completely immune to pretty much everything. I think it's even immune to acid. Not only that, but it also is perfectly capable of just killing things that are crazy, like orbs of fire and orbs of fire are like the best example of a monster that is usually almost deadly to any other summon, but this thing takes care of it like a joke because it is immune to fire and immune to magic. So it cannot be polymorphed and it cannot be damaged by the orb of fire. This spell just hard counters orbs of fire. It is very weak against leeches, however. Dread leeches can just summon Hell Sentinels that can just Iron Shot and Damnation, the Malign Gateway Tentacle. Ancient Leeches can skip a step and just directly Crystal Spear the Malign Gateway Tentacle. And the Tentacle has like no evasion, has low armor class, and has like 120 HP. So don't be surprised if a Leech just happens to two-shot Tentacle with Crystal Spear. But it is really good against many other things, including Draconian Bands. It is really good against Tentacle Monstrosities. It is just really good at killing many things. I like the spell a lot because it's like you cast it and it does its thing and then it goes away. There's no like micromanaging or anything annoying related to this spell. The summon is also ridiculously strong. Leaving aside its immunities, the summon deals crazy high chaos branded melee damage. So it doesn't take much time for the summon to actually kill things. It is really good. I cannot stress it enough. If you've never tried this spell, give it a try. Give it a try. It has absolutely my seal of approval. I like this spell a lot. Um, yeah, from all the translocations spells, this is not my favorite. My favorite has to be Manifold Assault, but this is probably my second favorite. Yeah, Malign Gateway is just a ridiculously powerful spell. Next on our list, and last one, should be Disjunction. Disjunction destabilizes the space in a sphere around the caster for a while, causing anyone nearby to blink away from the caster. Chance of blinking depends on the distance from the caster, being nearly certain when directly adjacent, causes magical contamination when cast. I also have never used this spell. From what it says, it gives you a status effect for a bit, like a buff, that makes it so that pretty much nothing can melee you. Is that really good? Because like think about it, it's a very high level spell. It's level 8. If you get level 8 skill on Translocations, that's level 8 skill that you could have put towards, I don't know, ice magic or fire magic and have like ignition or refrigeration. In my opinion, any spell that is above level 6 needs to be able to compete with refrigeration and needs to be able to compete with ignition in order for it to be even worth considering. And I guess this can be okay as a panic button. Kind of expensive of a panic button, but it can be okay. Um, I also have never used this, as I mentioned earlier, I think. But I guess on a character that somehow happens to get that amount of skill, I wouldn't say no to it. Um, but I wouldn't never go out of my way to try to get this. It's not really something that's worth going out of your way for, in my opinion. Mm, so yeah, I don't have much else to say about this one. In reality, I only wanted to do translocations for Manifold Assault and Malign Gateway. Well, and the early game spells. Funnily enough, I feel like in my spell overview videos, I'm like, oh yeah, early game, whatever. And in this one, like Blink and Apport are really, really strong. Lesser Beckoning is also really powerful. Passage of Golubria, and then the higher level we go, Dispersal and Disjunction are like not as amazing as those early game translocations spells are. It's just that being able to move you or your enemies is a really, really powerful utility to have, especially when it is that cheap. So yeah, that's Disjunction. Um, I think that's all the spells in the Translocations school. Um, so with that out of the way, thank you for watching the video. If you got to the end, do consider subscribing on YouTube if you haven't already. You can also follow on Twitch. I stream a lot of Twitch. I was on a bit of a crawl break, but now I'm going back to crawl now. And if you really like it, you can consider contributing to my Patreon or subscribing on YouTube. You don't have to do those things, but I do appreciate it if you choose to do them. Also, yeah, just tell me about your experiences with Translocations Magic. Maybe Translocations Magic is something that, or like the spells that I have not experimented a lot with when it comes to Translocations Magic. Maybe they're actually like really good and really strong, and I should try to incorporate them to my playstyle. Tell me how you use them if you've used them before. Um, so yeah, thank you for the support, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day, and I hope to see you around in my streams.